Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Evie Lupine and today I have another video for you all. Today we are going to be talking about 5 different types of play that new people commonly assume is much safer than it is. This was inspired by a conversation that I had at a recent munch, so thank you very much Claudia for the inspiration for this video. It is very much appreciated. They actually prepared some questions to talk about during the munch, and this was a really big inspiration for me, and I really wanted to talk about it more and make a whole video about it because I'm very passionate about safety, I'm very passionate about consent, and I'm very passionate about talking to new people in the community and helping them have a more accurate sense of what play is actually like and how it actually plays out in the real world. So again, today we're going to be talking about 5 different types of play that new people commonly assume is much safer than it really is. So, disclaimer is this is not going to be a video where I talk about how to do these types of play safely. I do not have nearly enough time to cover how to do 5 different types of play completely safely all in one video. I have covered some of these types of play in other videos. Links to those will be down below if you want to learn more. In general, if you want to learn about any type of play of BDSM, the best way to do that is to go to classes and find somebody that you can learn from who has a lot of experience with doing that type of play. The internet is not a complete resource. It is very easy to find misinformation. It is very easy to be misled or misinterpret something, and being able to talk to somebody in real life and watch demonstrations is completely invaluable when it is possible to do so. So anyways, let's talk about the number one thing I see that new people commonly believe is a lot safer than it really is, and that is choking. I don't know how many conversations I've had with new people. I don't know how many conversations I've overheard with new people who are just getting started in the scene and say, oh, I don't really know what I like yet. I don't want to go too hardcore. I think I just want to maybe start with some choking, maybe some blindfolds. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Back up. This is one of those things where if you are in the community and you've had the opportunity to take classes and learn from others, you will find out immediately how much breath play is considered to be edge play, and that is what we generally refer to choking as in the community. We refer to it as breath play, although technically the recommended way of actually choking somebody is not actually restricting their breath, at least not directly over the trachea, but rather by compression around the blood vessels around the neck. Now again, not an instructional video. This is something I really think you should learn in real life. I myself have taken many classes from doctors, EMTs, surgeons, etc., who have to deal with things around people choking and having their breath or their blood restricted on an everyday basis. So I recommend learning from them if you want to know how to do it safely. But when it comes to restricting somebody's breath and choking, all of this area right here is extremely delicate. It is very easy to accidentally restrict something for too long, to use a device to assist with it that is very difficult to remove. It makes it much more difficult to communicate and to use safe words and to tell your partner how you are dealing with something. It's very easy to activate or aggravate an underlying medical condition. It's very easy to be in a situation where you fall and you hurt something that way. Because if you know the technique and you're like, I know what to do, Evie, I have taken classes about this, I know how to do breath play, I did judo. Well, the issue is not necessarily with the technique so much it is the situation and how people decide to apply this. Because just recently, there was somebody who has extensive experience in BDSM who killed a long-term partner because they miscalculated breath play. Because again, it's not so much about being able to do the technique as it is being able to communicate and how that impacts communication and putting yourself in a safe situation so where if something does go wrong, you are not trapped somewhere, you are not dealing with having a concussion or having your face bleeding or breaking something in your head because you've choked somebody to passing out and then they have hit their head on the nightstand table or on the corner of the spanking bench or on the St. Andrew's cross or on the toys you had laid out on the floor. So many things can go wrong with it, and it's really something that I don't think you should be messing with and is not a good first step into BDSM by any means, no matter how much people sometimes use it as a kinky stepping stone into the larger BDSM community. In that same framework, the second thing that I see a lot of new people believe is a lot safer than it really is hair pulling and face slapping. I'm kind of combining these both together because I think I kind of share a lot of similar issues. Hair pulling is one of those things that, like choking, is common in sort of chai, spice, latte, vanilla type of bedroom situations where it's just a little bit kinky. People just want to experiment. They want to step their toes in, but don't necessarily know all the potential ramifications for that kind of play or how to do it safely, because people are not generally instructed in this. People do not generally learn how to safely pull hair in their sex ed classes. And so people tend to do what they see in porn and they see in movies, and what they don't realize is that very oftentimes when you are watching a movie or when you are seeing something from a theater production or you are seeing something from a porno, they aren't really pulling any hair. They have very convincing techniques to make it look as though the hair is being pulled without pulling any of it, and with the help of a willing actor, such as somebody again in a porno or in a movie, it can look very much like the hair is being pulled. So people don't really know the correct technique, so they just grab some hair and pull straight back, and that is when it gets really dangerous, because if you are in a situation where somebody is not expecting their head to get pulled in as hard and as fast as you are doing it, you can like basically do that too fast, and you can cause fractures, you can cause breakages, you can cause nerves to get pinched, you can cause all kinds of crazy shit to happen if you pull on somebody's hair too hard, too fast, too unexpectedly, at the wrong direction. It's something you need to be careful of, and it's something you need to be calculated with. I think something that is really important that all tops learn is to know their own strength. And so that means you can't make excuses like, oh, well, I hurt her neck because I didn't realize how hard I was pulling. Before you do that, you should know how hard you are pulling. And this is especially important when it comes to face slapping. You do not need to go like whoosh, like full on as hard as possible when you are face slapping. Again, this is not a porno. This is not the movies. They're not actors who are making it look worse than it really is. Like, in order to get the desired effect from face slapping, you don't need to go completely backhanded. That is how you break a nose or a jaw or lose a tooth or something like that. Like breath play, like any other kind of play, you do need to be calculated with it. You do need to be very intentional with it. And it's, again, very easy to mess up. And again, something you can also very easily learn from a BDSM class or talking to somebody with more experience in the BDSM scene who can explain to you in more detail what the risks are and how to do it safely. The third thing that I see that a lot of people believe is safer than it really is rope bondage. Rope bondage is everywhere. There is a huge sub-community in BDSM for people who are rope enthusiasts, that are riggers, who are rope bunnies, who are rope bottoms, who love, live, and breathe rope. And it's also very common in pornography and has for a very long time been a main feature of a lot of fetish porn. And again, that leads to a lot of misconceptions about what is and is not safe in rope bondage. There are a lot of situations where, just as actors in shows might do something to make hair pulling or face slapping seem more intense than it really is, in bondage porn there are a lot of little tricks and levers and hidden things that will make actually very, very dangerous ties a lot safer that you may not know about when you are attempting it on your own. And even very simple ties in rope bondage can potentially be life-altering. Not necessarily life-threatening in the fact that they will cause death, but there are a lot of nerves, especially in the arm, in certain parts of the leg, in various other locations on the body, that you need to be aware of before you attempt to do rope bondage, because you can cause nerve damage, and that is the big thing here. Now, I could go on a whole spiel about the difference between circulation and nerve compression and how one doesn't necessarily lead to the other, but you can have things really sneak up on you. Just because somebody's limbs are not turning purple doesn't mean that they're not at risk. Just because somebody's limbs are purple doesn't mean that they are at risk. And when it comes to rope bondage, if you don't know how to check in, if you don't know how to locate where nerves are, and your partner doesn't know how to communicate different feelings with you or thinks that a certain sensation should be expected, you could easily end up in a situation where your partner is unable to raise their hand or raise their arm or make any movements with other parts of their fingers, other parts of their body. and it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to treat. It is difficult to know how long it's going to last, if it's going to be a day, a month, a year, forever. Very hard to tell. So rope bondage is something as well that I think you need to have a good understanding of anatomy. You need to have a good understanding of how to communicate sensations and feelings. And you need to have a good understanding of the actual construction of it. It's a lot more difficult than just slapping some rope on and tying it up really quickly because you know how to sail and you know sailing knots. No. I've actually had 2 or 3 different people who are D-type identified go into munches, go into parties for the first time, and they see me and my partner doing rope bondage, and they start a conversation based on that, which is fine, and then they immediately go into, well, like, you know, I know climbing knots, and it's like, that has absolutely no application to this activity. You know, it's like, just because you have a skill in one area doesn't mean you know how to have a skill in another area. Like, because you know how to sign your own name does not mean you know how to do calligraphy. Like, it's not something that is nearly as related to some other skills involving rope as one might think. So it's a little bit dangerous to go into it assuming, oh, well, you know, I know a bunch of climbing knots, so therefore I'll be really good at rope bondage, is not necessarily the logic you want to go into if you are interested in doing rope bondage. So now the next one, number 4, in terms of things that people think is a lot safer than it really is wax play. Now, I do definitely have a video talking about wax play on my channel. If you do want to learn some good skills and some ways to be able to do this safely, link to that down below. But wax play is one of those things where people see or hear dripping wax on a partner and they don't necessarily think a whole lot beyond that, and so they're like, oh, so you just like get a candle and light a candle, and then you just drip it on. Whereas, like many things in kink, you do have to consider the context. You have to consider the fact that it's not just about lighting a candle and dripping it over your lover's body. You have to be aware of the temperature the candle burns at. You have to be aware of the flame. You have to be aware if they're wearing any clothing, what the bed sheets are made out of, how you're going to be able to remove stains, how are you going to be able to remove wax. What do you do if there's burns? Can the wax that you use cause burns? Is it something that's safe? You know, all sorts of things like that can occur because people just think, okay, I'll grab my favorite Bath and Body Works scented candle, I'll light it up, and then I'll drip it on my partner right over the top of their skin, which is like a one-way ticket to some serious burns right there. Ideally, wax play should be done with candles that are suited to the purpose of wax play, something that does not have fragrance in it, something that doesn't have anything that would raise significantly the temperature at which the wax melts. And ideally, you should be starting from a pretty high up location. You shouldn't need to be right on top of their skin to be able to put wax on them. It should be from a pretty significant height. And people don't realize the danger of having an open flame next to a bed and not considering that you may knock over the candle or drop it while you're trying to drip wax and have the sheets catch on fire, or accidentally giving your partner serious burns because you thought that the Bath and Body Works candle was fine, but really it burns at like 150 degrees or something ridiculous like that. So just be aware, not all wax is the same, and wax play is more than just dripping wax. It's a lot more thoughtful than that. Now, the 5th and final thing that newbies think is a lot safer than it really is actually some implements, some BDSM toys, and I am pairing these together because I don't think they're quite big enough to be their own categories, but that would be nipple clamps and handcuffs. And like face slapping and hair pulling, I think this is something that a lot of people go into and they're like, oh, I've seen it in a porno, I know how to do that, yada yada, and that's not really how it goes. I think handcuffs are something that are not super commonly used in BDSM scenes by people who are pretty experienced, and the reason for that is that handcuffs are easy to mess up. It is really easy to cause nerve damage by getting something that is too small, putting it on your partner, and then clamping it down as tight as it will go. It's something that is not meant to be comfortable. It is meant to restrain people. And when you do that on a partner and they're wearing it for 2 hours and they're struggling against it, you could break skin, you cause irritation. Again, you could cause nerve damage depending on how and where you are using the handcuff. And it's also really freaking easy to lose the keys. Like, if you have a situation where you have strapped somebody into some leather cuffs, or you are doing rope bonding or something, get a pair of scissors, you cut through it, and it sucks, and it makes you want to cry having to cut through expensive BDSM gear, but you can't cut through a handcuff. So when a handcuff is on, if you're doing the kinky BDSM stuff and you're like, put the keys over here, and then the cat comes in the room and the cat's like, great, keys, I love playing with keys, and the cat mischievously takes the keys away, and they are never ever seen again because the cat is mischievous that way. Oopsie, your partner is now permanently locked in the handcuffs, and that's going to be a real embarrassing phone call to make to the fire department that you need to have somebody come and cut your partner out of the handcuffs. Now, I know that they make ones that are like quick release or like safety release handcuffs, and those are a little bit better, but they still are not the ideal form of bondage, and the risks for nerve damage and abrasions from struggling against them, and the fact they aren't comfortable in general, definitely makes them a lot less safe than what a lot of newbies assume. Similarly, nipple clamps are one of those things where people kind of just don't think about how they should be used. Like, they don't think about nipple clamps. What will that do to my body besides produce an intense sensation? Well, ideally nipple clamps, depending on the type and the person's individual anatomy, shouldn't really be on for any longer than 8 to 15 minutes. Nipple clamps are not meant for long-term wear, surprisingly enough. They are not meant to last for the entire 2 hours of a scene. They are more an accompaniment to a scene rather than something that's going to be on for the entire 2 hours. The reason for that being really uncomfortable, and it can cause nerve and tissue damage relatively quickly because of how much pressure is being applied to such a concentrated area. I do know people who have lost sensation in their nipples because of wearing nipple clamps for too long. It is a risk. It's not really a risk you're going to hear anything about, but it is something that happens, so it's something you need to be aware of. Nipple clamps, well, I think they are something you can start off with in BDSM, not necessarily something that you can just put on and not think about again. You do have to be mindful of how you apply them, how much pressure is on them, and how long you've left them on for, because, again, risk for nerve and tissue damage. So those are all 5 of the reasons. So those are all 5 of the most common things that I see that new people in BDSM think are a lot safer than they really are. I think technically I could maybe call this a list of 7 because I combined 2, but I wanted to keep it at 5, so we're keeping it at 5. Anyways, hopefully you guys found this interesting and helpful. Let me know what you think down below. Do you have any forms of play that you believe new people believe is a lot safer than it really is? If you are a new person, do you have any questions about these types of play? I'd love to know your thoughts. If you want to see more from me, more videos, related stuff like that, you can check that all out in the description box below. If you haven't already and you want to see more from me, I do recommend subscribing to this channel. I make videos twice a week. And finally, if you really want to support my channel, if you want to help me make better content, more content, the best way to do that is on Patreon. Link to that will be down below and on the end screen, and that is what makes this channel possible, and that is what makes it possible for me to be able to have conversations with you all and produce exclusive videos and all that fun stuff. Anyways, until I see you guys next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.